Extreme weather isn't some distant, once-in-a-lifetime event. It's happening right now. Just this year, LA faced catastrophic flooding, turning highways into rivers, while wildfires ripped through California, creating massive fire tornadoes that looked straight out of a disaster movie. These aren't just freak occurrences. Scientists have confirmed that climate change is making extreme weather more intense and frequent than ever before. Over the past 2 decades, storms, floods, heat waves, and wildfires have killed more than 570,000 people worldwide, and the numbers keep climbing up. Here are 15 of the most extreme weather events ever recorded, some recent, some legendary, but all proving that when the planet pushes back, it doesn't hold back. Number 15. 2 F5 tornadoes hit the same town within an hour. Getting hit by an F5 tornado is rare. Getting hit by 2 F5 tornadoes within 30 minutes? That's the kind of horror that belongs in a disaster movie, not real life. But on April 3rd, 1974, that's exactly what happened to Tanner, Alabama. The first tornado touched down at 6:30 p.m., carving a 90-minute path of destruction, flattening homes and killing 28 people. As survivors tried to process what just happened, another tornado formed just a mile away and took the same exact path. By the time it was over, 50 miles of destruction and 22 more fatalities had been added to the nightmare. One victim was injured in the first tornado, taken to a church for safety, and then killed when the second tornado flattened the building. The odds of this happening? Well, astronomically low. But nature doesn't care about odds. It just does whatever the hell it wants. Number 14. The fire tornado near Redding. A wildfire is already terrifying, but a fire tornado? Well, that's straight out of an apocalypse. On July 26, 2018, the Carr Fire near Redding, California, created one of the most bizarre and extreme fire-related weather events ever recorded. A vortex of flames with winds reaching 143 miles per hour, powerful enough to rival an EF3 tornado. Fire whirls are common in wildfires, but this was something entirely else. The massive pyrocumulus cloud towering above fueled the vortex, creating an unstoppable inferno that tore through homes and vegetation. The event was so intense that meteorologists had to rethink the upper limits of fire-driven storms. Tragically, a firefighter lost his life after being caught in the swirling hellstorm. California gets weak tornadoes every year, but an EF3 strength fire-fueled monster? That was unheard of. The Carr Fire tornado rewrote the rulebook on wildfire intensity, proving that as the planet heats up, even the fire itself is evolving into something more dangerous we just can't control, or maybe even imagine. Number 13. Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane Sandy wasn't just a storm, it was a freak of nature that defied logic and common sense. By the time it hit New Jersey on October 29, 2012, it had already shattered records. It was the largest Atlantic hurricane ever, with winds stretching over 900 miles, enough to cover nearly half the U.S. Sandy wasn't just a hurricane, it morphed into a superstorm, slamming the East Coast with hurricane-force winds, record storm surges, and blizzards in the Appalachians. It was so massive that Chicago saw high winds, Florida got a storm surge, and Canada lost power, all at the same time. The storm surge in New York City hit 13.88 feet, flooding subways and turning Lower Manhattan into a lake. In the end, Sandy left 131 dead and caused $62 billion in damages. It was a wake-up call that hurricanes aren't just a southern problem, they're a national one. Number 12. The Freak March heat wave. March in the Midwest is supposed to be chilly, maybe even snowy. But in March 2012, winter gave up entirely. Temperatures across the Great Lakes region shot up to 40 degrees Fahrenheit above normal, and suddenly, people were sunbathing when they should have been shoveling snow. Detroit hit 86 degrees Fahrenheit, Milwaukee hit 84 degrees Fahrenheit, and in Lapeer, Michigan, it actually touched 90 degrees Fahrenheit in March. That's the kind of heat that breaks meteorologists' brains. In Marquette, Michigan, where March highs are usually in the 40s, the temperature hit 81 degrees Fahrenheit, breaking its all-time March record by 10 full degrees. This wasn't just a one-day event, it lasted over a week, breaking thousands of records across the US and Canada. If you wanted proof that the climate is changing, this was it. It was the kind of weather event that made you wonder, is the planet trying to tell us something? Yup, it is. Number 11, the insane temperature swing in Montana. Montana is used to wild weather, but what happened in Loma on January 14th to 15th, 1972 was next-level insanity. And you can Google it. The town went from negative 54 degrees Fahrenheit to 49 degrees Fahrenheit in just 24 hours, a 103-degree swing, the largest ever recorded in the US. This wasn't some gradual warm-up. It was instant climate whiplash. A massive Chinook wind roared in, turning the frozen tundra into spring overnight. By midnight, it had already climbed 88 degrees, and by morning, people were probably wondering if they'd hallucinated the whole thing. To put this into perspective, imagine it being 0 degrees Fahrenheit outside and then suddenly feeling like a summer day in Phoenix in less than 24 hours. That's how extreme this was. Montana still holds the record for the biggest temperature drop too. Browning, Montana, once plummeted 100 degrees Fahrenheit in a day. If you ever move there, pack both a winter coat and a swimsuit. You'll probably need both on the same day. Number 10. The unbelievable deluge at Smethport. On July 18, 1942, a rainstorm unlike anything seen before or since unleashed its fury over McKean County, Pennsylvania. What started as a heavy downpour turned into an unstoppable wall of water, drowning the landscape in record-breaking rainfall. By 9 a.m., 6 inches had already fallen, a serious flood risk on its own. But then, in the next 3 hours, an almost unthinkable 28.5 inches was recorded, with rainfall rates estimated at 40 inches per hour at its peak. The total for the storm was 34.50 inches in 18 hours, making it one of the most intense rain events ever documented anywhere in the world. The aftermath was catastrophic. Hillsides were stripped bare, landslides blocked roads and railways, and entire neighborhoods were swallowed by floods. At least 15 people died, and survivors described the rain as coming down in ropes of water, leaving them gasping for air. Smethport's storm remains a legendary anomaly in meteorological history. Number 9. Record-breaking snowfall in Madrid. Madrid isn't exactly known for blizzards, but in January 2021, Storm Filomena transformed the city into a frozen landscape straight out of the Alps. The heaviest snowfall in 50 years buried streets under half a meter, or about 20 inches, of snow, shutting down public transport, airports, and businesses. For a city more accustomed to mild winters, the storm was pure chaos. Roads were impassable, hundreds of cars were abandoned on highways, and military emergency units had to dig people out of their homes. The snowfall caused an estimated 1.4 billion euros in damages, collapsing rooftops and paralyzing entire industries. Some Madrid residents took advantage of the rare event by skiing through the city streets, but authorities warned elderly citizens to stay indoors as temperatures plummeted to minus 14 degrees Fahrenheit. The storm proved that even regions with mild winters aren't immune to extreme weather events, and there can be more we're not prepared for. Number 8. Storm Christoph. The UK is no stranger to rain, but Storm Christoph turned North Wales and northwest England into waterlogged disaster zones in January 2021. In just 3 days, it became one of the wettest periods on record, submerging entire neighborhoods and forcing thousands to evacuate. Homes in Cheshire, Manchester, and Merseyside were flooded beyond repair, leaving residents scrambling to salvage what they could. Once the rain finally stopped, nature threw another curveball. Significant snowfall followed, turning flooded roads into icy death traps. Local leaders described the mood as one of anxiety and disbelief, as flood defenses failed to hold back rising waters. Trains were canceled, schools shut down, and roads became impassable. Storm Christoph was a brutal reminder of the increasing frequency of extreme flooding in the UK, making it clear that climate change is turning once-in-a-century storms into daily occurrences. Number 7. Cyclone Ana. In January 2021, Fiji barely had time to recover from Category 5 Cyclone Yasa before Cyclone Ana tore through the country. As if one powerful storm wasn't enough, Ana hammered Fiji's northern islands, forcing over 10,000 people into evacuation centers. Heavy rainfall triggered flash floods, submerging homes, washing away roads, and leaving entire villages cut off from the rest of the world. Power and water supplies were completely wiped out, turning what should have been a tropical paradise into a scene of devastation. Fiji's ambassador to the United Nations, Satyendra Prasad, called the situation a difficult recovery, as families who had just started rebuilding after Cyclone Yasa were now left homeless again. Cyclone Ana was another stark reminder that island nations are on the front lines of climate-driven extreme weather, with rising sea levels and stronger storms threatening their very existence. All right now, let's move to Number 6. Texas Winter Storm. Texas is known for scorching summers, but in February 2021, it turned into a frozen wasteland. Temperatures plunged to -8 degrees Fahrenheit in some areas, and a crippling power outage left 3.5 million businesses and homes without electricity in the coldest winter storm Texas had seen in decades. The state's electric grid collapsed, and many homes built for warm weather had pipes bursting, leaving families without heat or running water. People lined up outside grocery stores for food, desperate to stay warm in houses colder than refrigerators. The death toll initially stood at 151, but months later, officials revised it to 210 after accounting for hypothermia-related deaths and the power grid failure's impact. Texans weren't just battling the freezing temperatures, they were fighting for survival in a disaster that exposed massive flaws in the state's infrastructure. Number 5. The Big Snow. One of the harshest winters in British history arrived in 1947, at a time when the country was still struggling to recover from World War II. Food was already rationed, industries were weak, and the last thing Britain needed was a winter so brutal that it paralyzed the entire nation. Snowdrifts reached up to 10 feet, cutting off entire villages, blocking roads and railways, and trapping livestock in frozen fields. Farmers watched helplessly as their animals starved or froze to death, unable to get to them through the snow. Coal supplies dwindled, and London was left with only 6 days' worth of fuel, leaving homes and businesses in freezing darkness. For weeks, Britain was at a standstill, with sub-zero temperatures and relentless snowfalls pushing the country to the brink. The Big Snow of 1947 remains one of the most extreme weather events in UK history. Number 4. The heat dome that cooked the Pacific Northwest. The Pacific Northwest is known for mild summers, but in June 2021, a historic heat dome turned it into an inferno. Temperatures soared to never-before-seen levels, hitting 116 degrees Fahrenheit in Portland and 121 degrees Fahrenheit in Lytton, Canada, which was then engulfed by wildfire just a day later. This wasn't just a heat wave. It was an unprecedented meteorological phenomenon where high pressure trapped heat like an oven lid, cooking the region for days. Many homes didn't have air conditioning, leaving people scrambling for relief. Roads buckled, power lines melted, and infrastructure failed under the relentless heat. Hundreds of people died across the US and Canada, and the disaster forced communities to rethink their readiness for extreme heat. Scientists called the heat dome a climate change-driven catastrophe, proving that even regions once thought to be safe from extreme heat are no longer safe, all thanks to us, humans. Number 3. London's Great Smog. London had always been smoky, but December 5, 1952, brought something far deadlier than the usual fog. A thick, poisonous smog that smothered the city for 5 days, killing over 4,000 people. The culprit? Cheap, low-grade coal burned in homes and factories, pumping tons of soot and sulfur dioxide into the air. A temperature inversion trapped the pollution at ground level, turning the city into a gas chamber of toxic air. Visibility was so poor that buses had to be led by people with torches, and ambulances couldn't navigate through the haze. People collapsed in the streets, gasping for air, as the deadly smog silently suffocated thousands. The Great Smog was a wake-up call, forcing Britain to confront the dangers of air pollution. It led to the creation of the Clean Air Act of 1956, changing how cities approached environmental health forever. Number 2. The Storm of the Century. Britain's worst peacetime disaster struck on January 31, 1953, when a deadly storm surge combined with hurricane-force winds and high tides, flooding over 1,000 miles of coastline and killing 307 people in the UK alone. Unlike today, there were no advanced warnings, no flood alerts, and no time to prepare. Entire villages were washed away overnight, and thousands of families were left stranded on rooftops, waiting for rescue boats. The North Sea surge didn't just hit Britain, it devastated the Netherlands too, where over 1,800 people drowned in the floods. The tragedy led to a massive rethink of coastal defenses, eventually resulting in the creation of the Thames Barrier, designed to protect London from future storm surges. The 1953 flood remains a sobering reminder that nature's fury doesn't always announce itself. It just arrives, and by the time you see it, it's already too late. Number 1. China's dust storm. In March 2021, Beijing woke up to an eerie orange sky as the worst dust storm in a decade swept across northern China. Schools shut down, flights were canceled, and air quality levels skyrocketed to 20 times the hazardous limit. While many called it a sandstorm, experts clarified that it was actually a dust storm, and that's far worse. Unlike sand, which falls back to the ground quickly, dust consists of tiny, inhalable particles that can travel thousands of miles and wreak havoc on respiratory health. The storm was fueled by desertification and deforestation in Mongolia as climate change continues to turn fertile land into barren wastelands. Residents were warned to stay indoors, but for many it was impossible to escape the thick, choking haze. This event was another sign that climate change isn't just about heat, it's about dust, drought, and disappearing ecosystems too. If you've enjoyed watching this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.